If your hip hurts and you've started to limp when you walk, stay with me and hit subscribe so you don't miss any pain-free Golden Years lessons. Today we're talking about that nagging hip pain and the uneven, limping walk that often comes with it. If each step feels like your hip is complaining or calling for help, this episode was made for you. Maybe your family has noticed your limp before you did, or you've started avoiding longer walks altogether. Hip pain and limping can be scary, but understanding what's going on is the first step toward feeling more in control. We'll walk through a real story, use these models to look inside your hip, and talk about realistic changes that may help. By the end of this episode, my hope is that your hip feels less mysterious and your limp feels less hopeless. You deserve to understand why your hip is calling out with each step. Let me introduce you to a woman named Susan from Ohio, whose story might sound a lot like yours.
Susan is 70, loves cooking and hosting family dinners, but recently her hip started to ache every time she walked.
At first, the limp was subtle, just a tiny hitch in her step. Then she noticed a deep ache right here in the side and front of her hip, especially after a busy day on her feet. She started leaning more on the cart at the store just to get through the aisles. Family members said, "You're limping. Did you hurt yourself?" But Susan couldn't recall a big injury. She worried, is my hip wearing out? Is this the beginning of the end of my walking independence? Maybe you've had similar thoughts at the mailbox, in the kitchen, or walking into church. Let's look at what lives inside this joint that's working hard with every single step. Your hip is a ball and socket joint, where the ball at the top of your thigh bone fits into the socket of your pelvis. A smooth layer of cartilage covers the surfaces, helping them glide with less friction. Around the socket, a ring of tissue helps deepen and stabilize the joint. Strong muscles and tendons around the hip help you stand, walk, climb stairs, and keep your balance. These side hip muscles are especially important for keeping your pelvis level when you walk. Nerves run through this area too, carrying messages about movement and pain. When cartilage wears down, muscles weaken, or tissues get irritated, your hip may speak up with pain and a limp.
One common cause of hip pain in older adults is osteoarthritis.
In osteoarthritis, cartilage thins, and the joint surfaces don't glide as easily as they used to. That can lead to stiffness, grinding sensations, and deep aching pain. Sometimes the tissues on the outside of the hip, like the bursa and tendons, become irritated too. This can cause tenderness when you lie on that side or when you take a step. Your limp is often your body's way of trying to get weight off a painful area. When you limp, you might shorten the time you spend on the painful leg. Over time, this can change how your back, knees, and other hip feel too. That's why hip pain rarely stays just about the hip for very long. But a limp doesn't automatically mean your walking days are finished. It does mean your hip is asking for support and attention. Let's look again at Susan's daily life.
Morning walks to the kitchen felt longer and rougher than they used to.
She leaned more on the counter while cooking to give her hip small breaks. By afternoon, her limp was more obvious, and she dreaded stairs even at home. She didn't want to complain, but she knew something had changed. If this sounds like you, you're not being dramatic. Your hip is doing the best it can with the situation it's in. We looked at what we could change in Susan's daily routine to give her hip a better chance. We focused on 3 ideas: load, alignment, and support. Load is how much weight and force your hip carries with each step. For some people, even a small amount of weight loss can ease pressure on the hip joint. The goal isn't chasing a certain number, but reducing extra strain where we can. Alignment is how your hip, knee, and foot line up when you stand and walk. Standing with your feet under your hips instead of turned in or out dramatically can help share the load more evenly. Shorter, more deliberate steps can feel kinder than long, pounding strides. Support includes shoes, walking aids, and even where you walk. Susan switched to well-cushioned, supportive shoes instead of worn-out slippers. Her healthcare provider showed her how to use a cane correctly when she needed it. Used properly, the cane helped share the load and improve her balance. A walking aid is not a failure. It's a tool to keep you safer and more mobile. Susan also chose smoother, well-lit walking routes when she went outside. Once we addressed load and support, we looked at how her hip and leg were actually moving. With guidance from her provider, she learned to gently activate the side hip muscles that were underworking. Small, pain-free leg lifts gave those muscles a chance to get stronger. Stronger side hip muscles can help keep your pelvis from dropping when you step. That makes each step feel more controlled and can lessen the limp over time. We also talked about how Susan's hip felt first thing in the morning.
Stiffness after rest is common in irritated joints.
She started taking a few gentle warm-up steps at the edge of the bed before walking down the hallway.
Those first slow steps helped to wake up the joint and muscles more kindly. Her goal wasn't to rush. Her goal was to arrive at the kitchen with less pain. We also looked at how long she stayed seated during the day. Sitting for very long stretches or crossing the same leg repeatedly made her hip cranky.
She practiced keeping her feet flat and getting up for short movement breaks.
Standing up with weight spread evenly instead of pushing from one hip helped too. None of these habits were about perfection. They were about giving her hip a kinder day. Jeffrey Nisoridito Leadouts. Now let's talk briefly about how food supports hip health. Protein helps maintain the muscles around your hip that protect and move the joint. A variety of fruits and vegetables provides nutrients that support overall tissue health. Healthy fats from nuts and seeds can also be part of a joint-friendly pattern of eating.
Heavily fried foods and giant portions didn't help Susan's hip or energy levels.
She didn't have to eat perfectly, she just aimed for more supportive choices most days.
Staying hydrated also supports your joints and muscles, including the ones around the hip.
Over time, these small nutrition and hydration changes supported everything else she was doing for her hip. Let's pause and talk about when hip pain and limping need urgent attention. If your hip pain is sudden, severe, or you can't put any weight on the leg, seek medical help right away. If you have a fever, feel very sick, or notice your leg looks shorter or turned oddly after a fall, that's an emergency. Those signs can mean something more serious is happening and should not be ignored. For the more gradual, nagging hip pain and limp we've been talking about, there is often time and room to work on habits. But even then, it's important to talk with your healthcare provider about what's safe for you. Ask them what they think is causing your hip pain, and importantly, what you can do in daily life to support it. Ask about movement, weight-bearing limits, and whether certain exercises or aids are right for you. Writing your questions down before an appointment can help you feel more prepared.
Things like, what can I do to walk more safely? And how can I protect this hip? Are great places to start.
You and your provider are a team when it comes to caring for your hip. Pain-Free Golden Years is here to help you with the daily habit side of that teamwork. Let's recap what we've covered about painful hips and limping today. First, your hip is a powerful ball and socket joint that can ache when cartilage wears down, tissues get irritated, or muscles weaken. A limp is often your body's way of shielding a painful area, not a sign you're lazy or weak. Second, load, alignment, and support all change how your hip feels with each step. Shoes, walking aids, and safer surfaces can share the workload and reduce fear of falling. Third, daily habits with sitting, standing, warm-up steps, and gentle movement can soften that hip complaint. Even small, consistent changes can shift your story from "I limp all the time" to "I'm moving with more support." Susan still has days when her hip speaks up, but she no longer feels completely at its mercy.
She's more confident in the grocery store, more prepared for family outings, and less afraid of every step.
Your hip doesn't have to be perfect for your life to feel more possible and hopeful. You're allowed to ask for help, use tools, and change habits in order to walk more comfortably. Your hips have carried you through decades of movement and memories. Offering them a kinder setup now is not weakness, it's wisdom. You don't have to change everything overnight. You can start with one new habit and build from there. Think about these 3 areas and choose one small step you could take this week. Maybe it's choosing a slightly shorter route, but walking it more often. Maybe it's paying attention to shorter, more even steps instead of long, jarring strides. Or maybe it's finally investing in better shoes or learning how to use a cane with confidence. Whatever it is, it counts. Your hip may be calling out now, but it can also respond when you listen and act. If this episode helped you understand your hip pain and limp even a little better, that's a big win. You took time today to care about your future steps, not just push through discomfort. If you found this video helpful, please tap that like button so more people with hip pain can find it. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss future Pain-Free Golden Years episodes. After this, you can explore videos on back pain, knee pain, and bone health to support your whole lower body. If someone you love walks with a limp or always grabs their hip, consider sharing this episode with them. Your share might be the nudge they need to ask about their hip and start making safe changes. In the comments, I'd love to know, when do you notice your hip pain the most? Walking, standing, or at night? Your stories help shape future Pain-Free Golden Years episodes so they match real life, not just textbook examples.
You don't have to share every detail to be heard. Share only what feels comfortable.
This channel is meant to feel like a calm, clear place to learn about your aging joints. Every model, chart, and prop here exists to support your understanding, not to scare you. You don't have to remember every word of this episode for it to be helpful. If one idea sticks with you and makes your next walk a little easier, that's a success. Painful hips and limping are common, but they don't get to own your entire story. When you understand what's happening, the fear around each step can shrink. And when fear shrinks, it becomes easier to make thoughtful changes. You deserve to walk with as much ease and confidence as your body allows. Your age does not disqualify you from progress. Your hips may have some wear and tear, but they can still be cared for better today than yesterday. That kind of better care can mean fewer bad days and more days you actually look forward to walking. It's okay if your progress is slow. Slow progress is still progress. What matters is that you keep showing up for yourself, even when your hip feels stubborn. You're not alone in this. Many others are learning to walk with kinder hips right alongside you. Thank you for letting me and Pain-Free Golden Years be part of your journey. Thank you for caring enough about your future steps to watch, listen, and reflect. Before you go, remember, you can always come back to this episode and replay parts that helped you. This space will still be here whenever your hip has more questions. If you haven't already, now is a great time to like this video and subscribe to stay connected. Your engagement helps this information reach more people who are limping through their days without answers. When you're ready, check out the next Pain-Free Golden Years episodes on knees, lower back, and bone strength. Each episode adds another piece to the puzzle of comfortable movement. Step by step, habit by habit, you can create a kinder path for your hips. Your hips' cry for help is real, but so is your ability to respond. I'm cheering for you, for your hips, and for your future independence. You deserve to feel safer and more supported in every step you take. Keep taking care of yourself, one mindful choice and one supported step at a time. Thank you again for spending this time with me here at Pain-Free Golden Years. This is Evelynn from Pain-Free Golden Years, wishing you calmer hips, steadier steps, and many more comfortable days ahead.